So our first game for the show is Ikaruga, which was nominated by @Soulhoof, SOULHOUF, a longtime friend of the show on Twitter, and he. I mean, this is I don't know what to say about this one. Let's run through the details here.
What to say about Ikaruga? Like the almost unquestioned best game by the almost unquestioned pinnacle of shmup creators. Yeah, I think that's a tough one to talk about.
Pinnacle, that would be what?
Pinnacle.
The pinnacle of shooter developers. You're talking about.
I don't know.
What game are we talking about? 2? What are we? No.
I don't.
We're already off to a fantastic start here.
No, okay. So it's developed by Treasure. It was released.
That's right, Treasure.
In arcades on. Released in arcades in Japan, December 20th, 2001. So just barely 2001.
Did this one see an arcade release outside of Japan? Because I don't really remember seeing it.
Sure, it did.
I think it stayed entirely in Japan for the arcades, same as its spiritual predecessor, Radiant Silvergun.
Right, but it was released for Dreamcast in Japan, nowhere else. Probably it used the same. Was it using the same kind of basic hardware for that? Or
the Naomi board? Yeah, I think so.
It was later released for GameCube, which I think did get a U.S. release. And
by Atari, of all people.
Yeah.
Or Infogrames, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
And it got a recent Steam release, which currently is on sale, but probably won't be by the time you actually listen to this. So,
I don't know. It should be out. We might be able to.
The sale ends July 4th. So
July 4th. That's right. I haven't bought anything.
Still get it anyway. Or it's a good port.
I'm being very disciplined this year. I haven't bought anything because I barely touched my queue. So
I did the same thing, but I actually bought something. So forget about me.
I kind of nuts.
I bought too much. That's Well, I guess we're talking about shmup and not our purchasing habits right now. But
before we go, I still have some carefully researched on Wikipedia facts to raise. Interesting thing I thought about this was that it was actually a lot of the programmers working on it were contracted out by G.Rev, who did this specifically to raise money, or so it goes. So it's said that it was done to raise money to make Border Down. Which is another very high concept shooter of that era.
That's a game I'd really love to see on Steam, but one step at a time.
I think if you have a Dreamcast but don't feel like paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars to import Ikaruga or Border Down, there's somebody went ahead and made a ISO of both games in one disc, which. That's how I played it. So
but we shouldn't condone.
I do in this case because they only made like 50,000 copies and they were only sold in Japan and they cost
Border Down is $1 billion. I would pirate the hell out of Border Down.
It's only the GameCube version of this particular game we're talking about.
The GameCube might be the most of all the official releases that aren't digital. It's probably the easiest one to find.
But it's like there's a Dreamcast release and there's a GameCube release.
If you have a Dreamcast and you're not just like burning any import game that you want, like you're an idiot because nobody is. Now for the Ikaruga though, like if you want to play that one, because Border Down isn't on Steam, I don't believe. So that's probably the best way to get Border Down.
It's only half illegal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, right. So,
hey, let's talk about Ikaruga.
Well, we just weren't talking about anything useful or interesting. So it's, who wants to explain this game? It's a Danmaku, it's a bullet hell type shooter, kind of kicked off not kicked off the genre because we did just talk about Armed Police Batrider, which is kind of like a forebear to the genre at least. But it's got this interesting polarity mechanic, which allows you to, when you press a special button, you change the polarity of your spacecraft, and that allows you to not be damaged by projectiles of that polarity, which is making it sound a lot more complicated. Basically, there's like orangey black bullets that are fired at you and whitey blue bullets that are fired at you. And if you're on one polarity, you're going to be able to you'll only be damaged by the whitey blue ones, and if you're the other polarity, you'll only be damaged by the orangey black ones.
Yeah, but go ahead, Bob.
I think it's a cool idea, especially because I like the moments when you're getting like a huge beam shot, you just kind of absorb and you get all the energy you need for your special attack.
Yes, your special attack is tied to your absorbing bullets.
Right.
That's an important mechanic.
Middle of a beam, it just rockets upward.
And I believe the gimmick is you do your scoring mechanic is tied to which side you're on. I think you get no score or something from destroying same color projectiles or something.
No, you need every group of 3 of the same color gives you like a extending 100 points each. But if you ever shoot one a different color, you lose your chain.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was. Yeah, you could only do chain score. You can only rack up chain bonuses.
I am really poor at that, so usually when I'm in a panic, I generally just hear a robot voice just spamming the phrase one chain, repeatedly, because they expect us to be precise and destroy these enemies 3 at a time while dodging a myriad army of projectiles. It's boy.
Okay, so let's,
One thing?
Yeah.
Even more than Bad Rudder, I'd say this game takes lots and lots of practice to get anywhere good at. And it helps that the game has like a little practice thing, individually practice like any segment of the game. I do appreciate that.
That is super cool. I believe it's also the first game that Treasure ever put out like a DVD of, like a perfect playthrough. Not that really helps you get better at it, but it's at least you can see that it's possible. I'm not really sure what the attraction to that is. I didn't realize that was a thing, but that's another thing I read on Wikipedia about 5 minutes ago.
Well, I was going to say, from what I remember, and to be honest, I haven't played this. I didn't update my playthrough memory for this game. I played it a few years ago. It is quite short, so compared to even like Batrider, it's a short game.
How many stages is it total?
5.
Okay, so I was able to make it through 3/5 of the game.
Yeah, it's very economical. I guess it's one of those games you could say where brevity certainly works in its advantage because, it's relatively breezy and it won't be a slog for you to, like, keep playing these segments and try and perfect them for as high a scores you can possibly get.
Got the practice mode, which makes that even easier.
I made it to mid-stage 3, and that was with 5 lives and the easiest extra life option.
Yeah, that was the same here. I did the 5 lives on easy mode with, which gives you, on the Dreamcast version, gives you 3 credits. Which, by the way, I burned that before it was ever available on Steam, just so you know. Like, I would have bought it on Steam, but...
That's fine. I have it on the Xbox 360.
Yeah, that's another way. Well, is it still available through that, or is it...
I assume so, but I have no idea why you would get it on the 360 when you can get it on a PC.
It's kind of silly to talk about, because if you're a... bigger fan than me of this kind of shooter, then you probably already have this game. So.
I do. Yeah, and it is, I'd say, definitely one of the best shoot-em-ups currently out there on Steam. As a sidebar, I think the number 1 is Eschatos, but we're not talking about that one. So, but no, it's not to put down Ikaruga. It's probably one of the very few shoot-em-ups for such a really niche genre that I'm willing to bet a lot of game players would be able to easily recognize. It's almost up there alongside like Gradius and R-Type and what have you. Would you say so?
Well, I mean, no, because it's a very different kind of shooter than Gradius and R-Type and Darius.
Well, I mean, the main thing about this game is because of its polarity mechanic, it steps slightly away from what a traditional shmup is, because it requires a whole extra mechanic on top aside from dodging and shooting and using your bombs at the right time. There is kind of like this whole...
There isn't really a bomb, though. I mean, there's the missile thing, but then clear bullets.
You don't get a lot of those either, right?
No.
Like, it's like you could... It almost doesn't matter. Like, the game is very focused on switching quickly back and forth between the polarities.
And for me, if you don't mind if I ran a bit, for me, like, the polarity thing, it makes sense, you know how it works, but I find it really disorienting more than anything, because you've got, like, a million bullets around you, both colors. You've got beams coming at you. You've got structures which can also kill you, and it's just you're constantly switching back and forth, and you're never. A lot of the time, you're just going to kind of forget what color you are and just run into a beam or something, and it just goes on like that.
Well, that's the challenge, though, isn't it?
Right.
Like,
yeah, I mean, that's why it's only 5 stages. It's not...
This game's like 5 stages long, and it takes you a year to beat.
Yeah, let's not beat around the bush. This game is extremely brutal.
Right.
I consider myself decent at shmups, and I need practically the free play credits activated to have any chance at this.
Batrider was difficult, but I mean, at least you kind of.
It's a little bit more traditional.
One front to deal with.
Right.
All the bullets were bad, and you had to dodge them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in this one, it's not particularly more intense, I think, than Batrider. Although there's a lot of points that in where I play the game where it deals with like really super confined spaces, which I do not like in shooters at all. Like dealing with bullets is one thing, but dealing with like really super tiny corridors, it's like
Yeah, this game is
Skywalker. Like it's
real.
Very few bullet hell games actually have factors of geometry into things, and that makes it pretty tough.
And it gets even like because you got to explode stuff in your way, like like Gradius games do that a lot. But you have very little space to do it, and you have to make sure that you're the right polarity to do it. And that means that you have to do it when you can aim from a point where you're only being blasted by bullets of the same polarity as the object you're trying to destroy. It really gets complicated, but because it's short and the levels are short, it's doable. I think it's fair.
I don't think it's unquestionable that this one is a fair game. It very rarely will try and it won't just cheap shot you or anything. Generally, you'll screw up because you flipped your polarity and then you forgot you flipped it, and then you'll drive into a bullet because you think you're one color but you're the other.
Exactly.
Or you'll get into for me, it was always I'd get into a pattern of flipping back and forth between polarities, and then I would just nervously flip even when I knew I wasn't supposed to, because I'm just frantically I keep hitting the button to make it work, and then I just hit it at the wrong time and I die.
Yeah, it's a very fair and gentlemanly game. It lets you know what you're in for before it breaks your legs and then stabs you repeatedly in the lowers, so to speak.
One thing that Treasure's shooters are really good at is working within the control limitations of whatever platform they're on. And so it was a coin op, so it didn't, it knows that you have a degree of control over it that you might not have on a Super NES controller, for example. And so it kind of plays with that. And there's a lot of the tight spaces stuff. But even nowadays, they basically invented the whole concept of doing bullet hell shooters for touchscreens for smartphones. They came up with a control scheme for that worked even with their old games. It's not great, but it's probably as good as you're going to get with that interface.
How do those work? I haven't really played.
They have kind of a null field at the bottom of the screen that is your control field, and they just are super careful about how they tweak the sensitivity of that, and it does work. You're moving it's you don't have a virtual joypad, which was or joystick or D-pad, which was very common early on in a lot of smartphone games, where they would just we'll have a representation of a physical controls, and they were just no, you're just going to be firing constantly, you can't stop, and then you're going to have this weird little field, and as long as you're moving your thumb within that field, it will register that as a movement, and you just kind of got to get used to how sensitive it is. And you might even be able to tweak the sensitivity of it. But they did a pretty good job. I mean, they made it playable for someone like me who's terrible at these kinds of games. But I digress. That's not really the point here. But I feel like Treasure is the kind of developer and publisher who puts that kind of thought into what they do.
Yeah, this game, I want to say, this is going to be a little bit of a controversial statement, and I could be wrong, but this might have been the last truly amazing 100% S-rank release that Treasure has ever done. After this, they kind of started to coast.
I'd probably say you're right. Like, I'd say the Bangai games they did after that were pretty okay, but after that, I don't know.
Wait, let me see here.
Really?
Oh, wait. No, my fault. They did develop Gradius 5, and that is also a fantastic shooter. Yeah, it was.
No,
okay.
They did a fair number of good things after this. It's just
All right.
I'm not sure that they coasted so much as they just, probably
I think this would be the last release from Treasure that got like enormous press for being a Treasure game.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This game was all over everything. It was just like, wow, Ikaruga is great. Wow, it's coming out on GameCube. Wow, you can buy it. Get Ikaruga. It's the greatest game ever.
That was like etc.
Oh God, I forgot.
Style. It came out on all the platforms that probably had the lowest licensing fees. So, it could come out on Dreamcast because it was based around similar hardware, but then didn't go out to PS2. Why? Development fees are probably too high. But in 2003. Development licensing fees, or not development fees, the licensing fees for GameCube were probably pretty damn low because they didn't have any games and it had been out for 3 years at that point. So that's yeah, sure, we'll put it out on GameCube. That's a very Treasure thing to do. They did a similar thing with N64 as well, but. I mean, I guess my main problem with the game is not so much, it's not really a problem, but it's kind of a hang up I have about bullet hell shooters, which is that I don't like shooters where I cannot look at the rest of the screen, where I have to focus exclusively on the 3 inches of screen real estate surrounding my character, my ship, which I feel like is a necessity for bullet hell shooters, at least for me. Maybe there's people who can play these games and looking at the whole screen, but I can't do it.
I think the only way to do that is, to play it 300 times so that you just kind of it's that bit. I remember that bit. And it just kind of...
It makes boss fights really frustrating. And that's when they get the most insane because you're you have to hit shoot the core, that kind of thing. But then it's I can only shoot the core when I'm in front of the core, and I can't be in front of the core 90% of the time because I've got to navigate these mazes of bullets. It's really, really frustrating. And this game makes it, in a way, better, but usually it's more frustrating because you also got to be constantly switching polarities. But in that sense, I feel like because the game gives you something else to do, it might ease up on some of the enemy bullet patterns in a way that other...
I would say this game feels a lot more empowered from a traditional shmup because in this one... You're not constantly dodging bullets in the same way. In this one, every time you switch polarity and then you pick up a bunch of bullets, you're yeah, I'm awesome. I can't even get hurt by bullets.
Right. Usually there'll be a wall of bullets of one polarity, and then you'll have a smattering of bullets of the other polarity. But so it gives you you got to get really used to ignoring whatever the polarity is that you can ignore. And rapidly switching gears to do that.
When the game gets hardest is when you're dealing multiple sources of bullets at once, and you can't really, your brain can't keep track of them all at once.
Yeah, I have awful short-term memory, which keeps making me think that I'm on the same polarity from a second and a half ago, and that just...
When you're dealing with a wave of bullets coming at you one direction, that's not really so bad, but you've got 2 beams, 3 waves of bullets from opposite sides of the screen. That's pretty rough.
So I guess we should probably rank this thing.
Yeah, I wanted to say that.
I know, but I've got to take it back.
Okay, hot take. Maybe not quite as good as Batrider. Am I wrong?
I don't know. That's a hard question because on one hand, Batrider is not nearly as inventive as this game is, but Batrider was also kind of pioneering the subgenre of shooter that this game was.
Well, I gotta step up here. Are you gonna seriously though say UN Squadron is a better shmup than?
Cal Paul, what is your beef with UN Squadron? You want to keep downranking it every episode. I disagree. It's... well, okay. It's not the most exciting shooter, but it has
to a shooter. And remember, we're talking about the Super Nintendo version of UN Squadron, which is better and different and a little bit has more stuff in it.
Yeah, the arcade version is kind of but the SNES one I think is one of the best shooters.
Below Outrun.
That's not bad. No, wait, that's below Armed. I mean, want to rank it a little higher.
Like 2005, 2006, Ikaruga would be like in the top 10 games because that was just that was the thing to do at the time. Was
right. I mean, but it's not. The game isn't any different. Like, it doesn't play any differently, of course, and it's also, if anything, the average, not the average gamer, but the average gamer who would listen to this podcast is probably more familiar with and comfortable with these kinds of shooters than they would have been 10 years ago. So I feel like everybody who likes shooters of any kind, like I really like shooters, but I like old school, like Star Soldier kind of shooters. But because of that, I will, I also enjoy, I also try out like the games like this that are like the must play, like you have to try this if you like shooters just to see whether you can get into it. And I mean, I got to admit, like I found this more fun than Batrider just because it had that interesting mechanic. And it's one of those things where it's like once you've seen it done, it's kind of like, oh, that was obvious. Why didn't anybody else do that? But nobody had thought of it before.
Yeah, and has anyone actually ever really done this gimmick after Ikaruga either?
I have a fan game that is it's like a fan sequel where you have 4 polarities. And,
wow, that sounds horrible.
No, I'm just kidding.
Now, I want to say at least one other game did this, but it's not coming to me.
I've played a couple of like Japanese like doujin indie sort of shmups that include the mechanic because why not? But
well, Border Down's a good comparison, even though it's not on the list. I mean, I can't remember what Border Down does differently, but I think it's something.
Isn't Border Down's main mechanic is the Border Down, like the title where you get hit instead of dying, you go down to like a lower.
Right. Yeah, that's it. It's very Section Z-esque in a way, although it's less voluntary. But you have a way of clawing your way back. I guess it's a little bit like Gradius in that sense too.
It is. Borderlands is more traditional, but also has some modern elements in it. Modern when it was. Now I don't even know. I mean, this is ages ago.
Who knows? Yeah.
I mean, so
yeah.
Ikaruga. I'm sorry, I have to jump in, and I would put it above Alien Soldier. That's where I'm putting it.
Ooh.
That's my opinion. I know I'm gonna get thrown under the bus.
It's a great game, but I don't know. That might even be a little high for me at this point. I was going to say, okay, well now this seems too low. I was going to page it between Contra Hardcore and Ranger X, but that's a.
I was thinking between Ranger X and UN Squadron. Like I really would put it above UN Squadron just because.
You know what? I can work with that.
Okay, I was defending UN Squadron a few minutes ago, but I do have to say Ikaruga is definitely a more inventive shooter than it. Lower than Ranger X though. I mean, I like Ranger X a lot too.
Really likes Ranger X.
It's a great game.
Ranger X. I feel like Ranger X is more subtly. It's even more inventive, but in a more subtle way because it's working with things that you think you understand. And you really don't. Like, there's a lot going on in Ranger X. There's a lot to master. There's a lot to learn.
Ranger X is also actually beatable for most people without having to turn on free play. So, I think I'll actually agree with you on this one. I don't want to argue the placement of an obscure Genesis game that certainly deserves more credit than it has.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is everybody's heard of Ikaruga by now.
Exactly.
But like seriously, if you like, I feel like people almost come to shooters now through the bullet hell subgenre rather than the way I came to them, which is like basically through Xevious on up, which is very, very different. Like those are the games like Xevious.
Who's gonna play Xevious?
Only me, like only people who are my age. Like somebody should nominate Xevious because I have a lot of. I feel like Xevious is in outside of Japan. I feel like it's a very underappreciated masterpiece.
I mean, it's definitely underappreciated outside of Japan. There's no
But anyway, I mean, my point about Ikaruga is this: I feel like it's almost an entry point for a lot of people, which is maybe why shooters have become such a niche genre. So I guess we're stuck with this then. It's going to be between Ranger X and you and Squadron because 3 of the 4 of us can live with that.
I can live with it. I'm not gonna, I don't know, quit everything.
You're not going to rend your garments and go crying into the streets. Lone voice in the wilderness.
Where the hell is this coming
Can't
from?
play video games anymore. It's all over now.
Okay, so we're done.
I don't mind having this interesting little shmup zone we've got going in the list where it's just kind of like, this is where we put the shmups.
Well, I mean, the important thing is that it's got to be beneath Blue Stinger because there is a noticeable and palpable lack of Dog's Bower or Dog's Bower-esque characters in Ikaruga. So,
or any characters, but that's not really a bad thing.
There's a big backstory for Ikaruga that we didn't mention, right? Like, it has one of those giant...
Yeah, that's the thing about these sorts of light-seeming games, that they have, like, a 20-page elaborate backdrop.
Like Buddhist philosophy or something?
No, I think that might be involved. Something about how the polarity is, like, yin and yang, or, like... I don't know. I know that
the Taoist philosophy.
I know that video game lore really cheeses people off, so we don't want to inflate time by going into it.
Giving lore to a bullet hell shooter is kind of like writing like Bible fan fiction. Like there's just something extraneous about it that just seems like it's beside the point.
I mean,
you'd say that, but I'm pretty sure the Toho guy makes tons and tons of money, so. Just saying.
Well,
the point of when you have these shmup stories, like I understand writing them because the people that are making the game probably need some sort of context to build the game on. You don't
they
just
don't.
They do.
You
they
have an art director, and the art director's job is to come up with an interesting direction for the art.
Yeah,
and
the art director's like,
what am I
making?
I'm like, hey, now that you've got the art direction figured out, let's come up with a story. First of all, all 12-year-old girls.
You give it to the art director, and he'd be like, I really like platypuses, so, like, the ship's are platypuses, and the characters are platypuses, and then it's like, no, stop, it's about
one of
Buddhism.
Them is a cat girl princess unicorn. The other one is an anthropomorphic 12-year-old girl airplane. Yeah.
I feel like we're alienating a chunk of our fan base with this somehow, but I don't know what the demographic is.
This is what is it, like Arrow Wings or whatever is what you're pitching?
Arrow Fighters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the one with the dolphin and the ninja.
That dolphin is great, and I will not hear otherwise.
Name is Spanky. I wish we were talking about that game, but maybe.
With that, we can kind of wrap this game up.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I almost feel like the side conversation about lore of shoot 'em ups needs to be like a separate entity.
I guess this will be our stinger.
I don't know.
Think of an image to put on the video.
Maybe.
Strike witches. Are we still making fun of strike witches?
Let's not go there.
I mean, I can if I can get to it, I'll draw I'll gotta listen to Xerxes' pitch for the characters, and I'll draw a fake like title screen for the game that doesn't exist.
Awesome. I'll put that in the video footage then.
Surely, a fan out there who's could make an entire Dojin shooter based on our show. So. And we'll rank it too.
Yeah, you should say any fan games will be ranked for the show.
At number 1, if you include Dog's Bower, who was a co-host.
If they put Dog's Bower in the game, you have no choice but to rank it high. That's the problem. You've set this standard where if there's a Dog's Bower character in it, it has to go up.
The standard. The greatness of Dog's Bower set the standard on its own. I just recognize.
Super Mario 3 doesn't have Dog's Bower in it. How do you explain that?
Well, no, because I believe Mario's mustache is sufficiently Dog's Bower-esque to qualify it.
That's reasonable.
Look, Mario and Dog's Bower would get along swimmingly, if you ask me.
Yeah, I have actually no doubt that would be an interesting, Comic
Dog Tower
to
would
me.
show Mario his absolutely Homeric gravity bong that he has in his in the hull of its ship, and I mean it just goes from there, and then Mario's like, "Have you tried the mushrooms?"
See, it's just this actually wrote itself.
Really,
It's
it
a good
does.
pitch.
Yeah, it's a really weird. It's kind of like a slash Vic, except the slash part is just like a mutual drug experience.